the divine soul's agenda. So last we left off, we described that there's a lot of turmoil going on inside you, just like Rivka, Imenu, Rebecca are do you call them foremothers? They're forefathers, are they foremothers? Whatever she was, our ancestor. She had two babies inside her who were kicking and screaming and pulling each other's hair out inside her tummy. And we also have two souls inside us that are just irreconcilable. So that seems to be a major issue, one that has to be discussed. There's a lot of conflict inside any living thing. That's what life is all about. But all of those conflicts can somehow be compromised. You know, there's the part of you wants to go to sleep and part of you wants to stay awake. So we say, okay, now we'll be awake, later we'll be asleep. We worked it out. Fantastic. Okay. Part of you says, we have to fight all the germs. There's bugs here, we got to get rid of them. Part of you says, no, we got to work on resources and storing food. Okay, so we have some time for doing this, some time for that. It works out. But here you have a conflict between these two souls inside you. And one says, we have to be concerned about ourselves, what feels good for me, what I enjoy. That's what life is all about. And the other side is saying, no. We have to transcend that entirely. That we have purpose over here. And this is not resolvable. Well, there is a way of resolving it, and that is one of them totally surrenders. That's it. One or the other. But without that, there's no middle ground over here between, well, I'll be sort of selfish. That doesn't work. I'll be a little bit self-centered, but not so much. No, there's a pull to be totally self-centered or totally self-transcendent. And there is no middle ground between them at all. That's what we discussed until now. Said it's like two kings fighting over one city. You can't divide a city between two kings. So it's either one is going to be the ruler or the other one. You can't have both. Then we said another thing, that in order to win this battle, since it's a battle over a city, and a person is a city. Why you're a city? Because you have many, many voices inside you. Okay, it's not just a matter of staking out the city, like walking in with your army and saying, okay, now we're running the place. That's not called conquering. If you were just conquering territory, you advanced your territory. We moved the border forward 100 kilometers. Okay. So we put down a flag, we put up some fortresses, we got this place. But this is a recap from last week. But let's say you're living in the 17th century and you decided you want to conquer Venice. Venice was a city-state, probably the last of the great city-states in Europe. And so you're going to walk in and say, okay, now I'm king. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because the people haven't accepted you as king. To be king of a city means you're the one who unites all these diverse voices to become one. And if you're a dictator, you haven't united anything. A dictator is not a king. So the same thing with your body. There's all these different voices. And if you're just going to control it by saying, shut up, this is what we're going to do, and that's it, you're not in control of your body. You're not in control of any of it. If you just tell your heart, well, it's too bad that you feel that way. Well, this is what we're going to do. You're not really in control of it. Control means winning over the hearts of the people. Or in the case of yourself, winning over your own heart. Whoever wins your heart, the emotions of a person, that's who's won you, right? When you want to win over somebody, you don't want to just convince them intellectually, rationally. You want them to feel that way. Until they feel that way, then there's still another world, even if they agree with you. So what do we do? Yeah. So this is what we get to with the Divine Soul's agenda. This is the Divine Soul's agenda for taking control of yourself, body, self, and knowing that it's got to get the heart. The animal already has the heart. That's where it starts off. It's by default the ruler, right? It's in there. It's got its heels down. It's there, and the divine soul now has to come in and take over. Okay, so we start off. The divine soul's innermost desire is that she alone be the body's rule and director. My translation might be a little bit different than what you've got there because I keep on changing it. And further, so she alone, exclusively, and further that all the body's limbs obey her command, submitting themselves entirely to her. And yet more that they be to her like a vehicle to its rider, which has no will of its own. So not just they submit their wills to that they should have no will, just whatever you say. And that the energy running through your limbs fully embody her, all her 10 faculties and 3 interfaces described earlier. That all those faculties and interfaces be wholly integrated into the limbs of your body. So your thought, speech, and action, all of that is going to be completely nefesh halukis of the divine soul. And your body will be filled by them exclusively, thought, speech, and action, so that no foreign authority could even pass through any of its limbs, God forbid. Who's the foreign authority? Obviously, the animal. The beast won't be able to pass through. Of course, you need the beast to run the body, but not as an authority. He'll have no authority whatsoever, not even to speak up, not even to mention, nothing like that. Okay. That's the ultimate goal. I mean, I'm sure you've realized by now that there are very few people that ever achieve this goal. We'll find out later that there must be at least 2 people per generation. Like Moses and Aaron. There's got to be somebody in the world who achieves this goal. But it's not like the everyman goal. But nevertheless, it is the goal, no matter where you are. So let's get into it some more. So that's the general desire, to establish yourself as sole ruler over every limb of the body to the point that it becomes hers from every angle. Now, more specifically, and this we get to strategy, your divine soul desires that the 3 compartments of your brain, your brain has 3 compartments. We showed the diagram here, and Tobo can confirm that there's basically a right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, and then beneath the brain, there's a brain stem. There's also a thing back there called cerebellum. But, okay, maybe that's another compartment of the brain. But here we're talking about the right, the left, and the brain stem. And those correspond to Chochmah, Bina, and Dat, right? Chochmah is in the right hemisphere, Bina, the left hemisphere, and Dat in the brainstem. Why? I mean, it does work out that way. I don't know if I went through this in any of the classes, but there was a diagram there. The right side of your brain is more about holistic thinking, and the left side is more about linear and verbal thinking. And the brainstem was the intermediary between brain and body, where things become like a real sensation, a real feeling of things. So the strategy of the divine soul, of course, begins in the mind. Once the mind, but the mind as it is within the compartments of the brain. In other words, not talking about just floating off there into space in thoughts. It has to be thoughts that are exhausting all the powers of the physical brain. Here in chapter 3, we were talking about these as being faculties of the soul. Now we're talking about how these faculties of the soul are invested within flesh, physical, gray matter and white matter. So once these engaged, Chochmah is knowing of God, knowledge of God. Bina, to contemplate, it's unfathomable, endless greatness. That's That's the hisbeinenus, the meditation, the contemplation. So this is this whole strategy. We're going to grab the brain, right? We're going to contemplate. That's where it starts off from. You can imagine the scene. The the divine soul and animalistic soul are arguing. Whose body is this after all? And of course, the animal soul says, well, I got the heart. You lost, and you think you got the brain. I'm using the brain all the time for whatever I'm feeling. So the divine soul says, yeah, well, I'm going to take over. I'm going to get you out, throw you off your throne. I'm going to take over. Yeah, how are you going to do that? So you imagine, I can do that through punishing you, fasting, and send armies are going to shoot arrows, bullets, blow up. No. What am I going to do? I'm going to contemplate. Contemplate. You contemplate all you want. You never get me contemplate. No. Contemplating is like a secret weapon. This is a major tool. We're going to win by contemplating. How do you do that? Okay. So this is how it does it. This is the Chachma has the knowledge. Bina contemplates unfathomable endless great. In other words, Chachma and Bina are plugging themselves into a higher source. They're gazing upon the infinite. And they're to get that light, that energy. And that's through that, this Chachma and Bina give birth to emotions. Because we learned in chapter 3 that when you think obsessively and deeply and really focused, it gives birth to emotions. If you think about something and no emotions are born from it, it means you weren't really thinking in a focused way. If you thought about something that really, like if you would think about smoking is bad for you. I say, yeah, okay, smoking is bad for you. And that's it, okay? Then you didn't think about it. If you thought smoking and this, you saw the pictures, you saw how it works, this is what happens. This is horrible. How could somebody ever smoke? Oh, then you must have thought about it. If you read the ingredients on junk food and it's still perfectly capable of eating it, you didn't really think about those ingredients. Right? When you think about something properly, it gives birth to emotions. In other words, it moves you. If it doesn't move you, it shows you didn't think about it. I was just arguing with somebody who was telling me that you don't have to think about God. You just have to know He exists, and then you're doing the mitzvahs because you know He's there. I mean, you see this world in front of you, and it looks like it's just a jungle, and everything's doing its thing, and you don't see God there. You're going to have to think very, very hard to overcome the immediate stimuli about you, and truly feel that when you're saying Baruch Ata, that you're talking to God. That takes a lot of contemplation. Okay, and then it gives birth to emotions. What are the emotions? Awe of God in your mind starts off within the mind, and then palpable fear in your heart and love of God. So it's palpable. Pachad Hashem is something you feel, like the heart is pumping. So now he's going to go into how this unfolds within the heart, which is what we're talking about, getting to the heart. It's a love raging in your heart like a consuming fire, like a burst of flames, so that you yearn, even languish with fervor and passion to bond with Him, the infinite, with all your heart and soul, and yet even more from the deepest place of your heart's right ventricle. Starts really flowing over here, so that it be wall-to-wall love, brimming and overflowing until this love spreads to the left ventricle as well. So the point is that it's going to be such a deep contemplation that it doesn't just a little feeling in the heart, it's going to be burning there. And then the entire heart is filled with this burning. And the point is that it should overflow to the other side of the heart. So it's going to spread to the left ventricle, right? We said the residence of the divine soul is in the right side of the heart. That's the side of the heart that pumps the blood through the lungs, and it's smaller, not as strong. But now it's going to spread over to the left ventricle. Oh, that's the residence of the animalistic soul, the animal soul. That's the big, strong muscle that's pumping the blood through the whole body. So we want so much love, so much emotion that it's going to spill over into the left side, suppressing there the Sitra Achra, the animalistic soul's bad element of water, manifesting as her instinctual appetite for pleasure, which is of klipas noga. Right? So the essential animalistic soul is this, an instinctual appetite for pleasure. Pleasure, I should feel pleasure. I should feel pleasure. That is the beast. That is the animal. What are we going to do about this animal? Well, the first strategy, inundate it. Inundate it with what? With divine love. Give me so much love that it's going to spill over there into the left side. This is why, by the way, what makes a tzaddik into a tzaddik is this degree of love. We're going to get to that to the next chapter. Okay. Now, what we want to do then is what comes next. And then to transform that appetite for worldly pleasures and ultimately invert it to love for God. We not just overwhelm it, but to take that passion that's there and that appetite, so that it won't be an appetite for worldly pleasures. It won't be just, oh, that feels good, that's nice. No, you take that passion and now it will become love for God, which is an amazing passion. I mean, the divine soul can have passion. Yes, it's passion. But for real passion, you need an animal. And you're going to take that animal with all its power and turn it over. So now the animal loves God, which is a completely different level of love. Just like it says, you should love God with all your heart. Look on the Hebrew side. You say b'chol levavcha. There's two letters, bet, right? Those are the two sides of the heart. All your hearts, both sides. So the rabbis say on that, that it means b'shnei yitzrecha, both sides of your heart, not only with your Yetzer Tov, but also with your Yetzer Hara. You're going to make that the Yetzer Hara will love God. Now I can think, how is that possible? It's a Yetzer Hara. It wants you to do bad things. It's terrible. I can make it be good. No. Yetzer Hara is not something that wants you to do bad things. Yetzer Hara is something that says, I'm interested in you enjoying life. I want you to have all worldly pleasures. Whatever they are, I feel you should have them. I'm your buddy. That's a Yetzer Hara. And if you recall, we talked about there's two Yetzer Haras. You have a Jewish Yetzer Hara and there's a non-Jewish Yetzer Hara. And the Jewish Yetzer Hara doesn't want to do sins. It just wants to enjoy things, and only enjoy things if it know that afterwards it can do tshuva. Okay, so it's all it is basically is your instinct. And instincts is naturally lends itself towards the immediate, right? We run life by seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, because pain is not pleasurable. That's what a living being is, a nefesh. A pleasure seeker. You want to define life? A living being is whatever anything that's seeking pleasure is a living being. Okay, so this pleasure seeker inside you doesn't necessarily have to go after immediate corporeal pleasures. That's just what it knows from the time it was born. When you were a little baby, that's what was around you. So that's what you got filled with. So that's what it's going after now. But it doesn't have to. It's just raw passion. So we need to take that raw passion and show it that there's higher passion. There's passion for higher things. There's passion for music. There's passion for intellectual stimuli. There's passion for doing nice things for people. But the ultimate passion is love for God. We want to turn it around that way, and that's possible. B'shnei yitzrecha, with both of Yetzes. Okay, but now how does this happen? And this is the transformation that takes a tzaddik into the ultimate tzaddik. On the next page, but the fiery love that breaks through to the left ventricle and overwhelms the sitra achra cannot win it over and invert it to good. Rather, this sort of transformation requires that you transcend that love. You have to transcend that love that's like fire. You have to go beyond love like fire, scaling upward until you attain a much higher tier, a great love, a degree of intimacy far beyond the fierce love that is like coals of fire. This is the love that Torah calls love with delight. Your soul delights in God. She tastes of the world to come. So this is the love of great tzaddikim, like Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It says they tasted of the world to come in their lifetime. What does that mean? Like getting your reward in this world is the simple meaning of it. I have to explain more. So love is like thirst. Love demands to be satisfied. Right? It's not like fear or awe. Fear or awe is just static. It sits there. But love, when there's love, it demands something. It wants something. Right? Simcha doesn't. Simcha, you get up and you dance. You're happy. Fine. Joy. Love means a thirst, a hunger and a thirst. And that's why it's love like fire. It's burning and it needs to be quenched. So love of things in this world can be satisfied. But how do you satisfy love of God? He's infinite. So it becomes always unrequited love. It can't be satisfied. This just goes on and on and on and on. And so it becomes like a motor. It propels you to keep on going. I need to come close to God. How am I going to do that? I'm going to learn his Torah. I'm going to do his mitzvahs. It keeps trying, but you're not satisfied because it's love and you need all of him. So that's what the world to come is all about. That's when this love becomes satisfied, because once you leave the body, or in the true world to come after the resurrection of the dead, so you have a completely different kind of body that's able to truly commune directly with the divine. And so you're there. You're like a small child who ran away and then is longing, where's my mommy, where's my daddy? And now you're back with your mommy and daddy, okay? You're back there. So that's what's called Ahava b'tanugim, love with delight. That's me'ein olam haba. It's the love that feels pleasure because it's been satisfied. And very few people ever achieve this. Like that's the level of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Sarah, and so on. But we need to know what it is, because it's what your soul really desires. So it's called love with delight. So now, how do you get to this? Love with delight, we say it's like water. It's like water. But it's love, and it has this trickle of delight within it, satisfying it. Where's that delight coming from? Tanugim, this ecstasy. You know, it's called ecstasy, delight, bliss. Bliss, that's the word, bliss. Okay? It's blissful love. So it's not a type of thing that's like the emotions that's born from the intellect. Rather, it is the very essence of the intellect. The very essence of Chokhmah, of which we call wisdom usually, of Chokhmah, the very essence of Chokhmah is pleasure. It sounds strange, but that's how it works, the very essence of it. It sort of explains things, because why when we have two different explanations for something, and both of them work, which one do we generally choose? The one that's more elegant and beautiful. And it always ends up working better for us. It's elegant, it's simpler, the pieces work, oh, it's so much nicer. We go for that. Really, when we're trying to understand something and get it, what we're trying to do is it should feel right for us. It has to feel right. In other words, if you solve a problem and it doesn't feel delightful, you didn't come up with a really good answer. Now, the Maharal of Prague says this, that if you have a question and somebody gives you an answer, and the answer works, but it's not beautiful. It's wrong. Oh, what happened? Oh, I sunk beneath my screen. I'm sorry. Thanks for letting me know, man. I'm back here. So it has to be that it has to be, if it's true, it's going to feel delightful. And a really good answer, like sometimes you have this question, that question, all sorts of questions from every angle. It's so problematic, so many different questions. And then you find an answer with this one answer, just everything is answered. All the little questions all over the place, answered with one simple answer. Like electromagnetism, Maxwell's equations. Solve all these problems with just a few little equations. Amazing. So those are beautiful. They're delightful. So that's just showing that the essence of wisdom is delight. So that delight is what's essential for turning the animal around. Because the animal is having delight in things. You have to be able to show this animal, you know what, you enjoy things, you enjoy this, you enjoy it. I've got the ultimate delight for you. And it's intellectual, but it's beyond intellect. It's this delight that the soul has in God. And it's just something we have innately. Okay? So that's there within the divine soul. The divine soul's real secret weapon is this delight that it has. Okay, that deep pleasure within this love, that is the chokhmah and intelligence of your brain, delighting in contemplations of God and in knowing Him, each person according to their mind's grasp and insight. It is the water aspect of the divine soul. It's called Or Zarua Tzadik. That's a love that's planted within the core holiness of your divine soul. So basically, this is what makes the divine soul divine, is this delight, this bliss. We learned in chapter 2 about the divine soul comes from God's wisdom. This is the essence of it, is this tainug that it has. So that's what comes out now at this point. So we say it's like water, this tainug. And being of water, it subverts the water aspect of the animalistic soul, the original elemental source of our appetite for worldly pleasures. So now, after you inundated the animalistic soul with all this fiery love, all of a sudden now, the love now has to go up to a much, much higher level, where it's a calm, blissful love. And that bliss, the light, comes, and the animal says, whoa, this is the ultimate bliss. And forget everything else, I'm going after this. Now comes a very interesting passage here. That's what's meant in Etzchaim. Etzchaim is the classic work of teachings of Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, written by his protege, Chaim Vital. So it says over there, Portal 50's last portal, chapter 3, citing the Zohar, when it says that the Yetzer Hara can become thoroughly good just like the Yetzer Tov. It's very interesting over there. He says that the Yetzer Hara is actually a malach. It's an angel. But what happens, it's a fierce angel, like Gevura. And so it slips easily into bad things. because it just has a proclivity to that. So it becomes that. And in the Zohar, it compares it to the Mata, this Moses' staff, that the staff could be a staff that he did miracles with, but it could also become a snake. And the Zohar says that's like the Yetzer Hara. It's an angel, but it can push you towards bad things. So which one is it? So he says, so how he describes it now, he says, it depends on how it gets dressed up. The Yetzer Hara is a malach, an angel, and it can go either way, depending on which clothes you give it. And there are two types of clothes that you can give it. You can give it what's called now the filthy clothes, or you can give it divine clothes. What are these? It says the filthy clothes. What are filthy clothes? It's actually a line from Zechariah. Zechariah was like one of the last three prophets, and he's prophesying in the times just before they're going to build the second Bet HaMikdash. And he says, he saw a great angel above who was sitting on a throne. And Yeshua, Kohen Gadol, so Yeshua, not the Yeshua you should know about, but this Yeshua, Joshua, he became the first Kohen Gadol of the second Bet HaMikdash. So, but this was before there was a Bet HaMikdash. So he's Kohen Gadol without a Bet HaMikdash. And Zechariah says he saw that Yeshua, Kohen Gadol, is standing there before this angel sitting on the throne. And the angel commands, remove his filthy clothes. Remove them from him. And so these angels come and remove the dirty, filthy clothes. And then they put on beautiful priestly robes on him. So the Zohar says from that, shows that you can't put on the beautiful clothes until you take off the filthy ones. But what are these clothes? These clothes are your attachment to pleasures of this world. Right? Like I said, from your very first moments in life, you were seeking physical pleasure. And you build up a repertoire of these stimuli mean I could have pleasure. These stimuli means that will be painful. This stimuli means lots of pleasure. So you learn them and you create a whole repertoire or a wardrobe of all the pleasures that you are invested in. But as long as you're totally invested in earthly pleasures, how are you going to feel divine pleasure? It's a famous line from Rabbi Bachi Ibn Pakuda wrote the Chavot HaLevavot, the duties of the heart. So probably the most famous line from there is he says, just like fire and water cannot coexist within the same container, so too, love of God and love of this world cannot coincide within the same heart. So that's what he's saying here. And here it's not just love of, but any sort of attachment to. So it was basically stepping back a bit. Any step in life, you have to be able to let go of something to attach yourself to something higher. And if you can't let go, there's not going to be room for grabbing something else. You know, like with little kids, when they learn to hold on to something, but they haven't yet learned to let go. And so they have both their hands full of something and they want something else and they just don't know what to do. Eventually they learn, open your hand and it fall out and then you can take this, okay? But otherwise, it's a certain stage. They can't let go, but there's something else they want. Okay, but we keep on going through that in life. You want something greater, something bigger, but you can't let. Guy who said, he said he really wanted to become a great writer, script writer for Hollywood and all this stuff. But the only time he has for it is on Sundays. And on Sundays, he just can't stop watching sports for 6 hours a day. So, okay, you want to get on in life, you have to give up watching TV. I mean, there's something you have to surrender to go higher. So spiritual growth cannot happen without letting go of physical pleasures. It just doesn't work. And we're not talking about all the pleasures of this world that are for the sake of just pleasure, meaningless pleasures. So you have to let go of something. You want to go higher, you got to let go of what's lower. There's no way in that. But here we're talking about at the ultimate level. This is talking about the person who's achieving the ultimate what a human being can achieve, which is to get his beast, his animal, to love God. But the only way he can do that is he has to have no association whatsoever with the pleasures of this world. So when this great love removes its filthy clothes, the pleasures of this world in which the animal soul was so invested. So that's this ultimate stage. The ultimate stage is first after this fiery love, is it? Because maybe I'll go through the whole thing. The contemplation and das, recognition, really feeling it, and then that comes down to emotions and emotions in the heart until the heart is full completely with this love and overflows from the right side to the left side. It overflows and inundates the animal, but then hold on. Inundating the animal is not enough. We need another stage. We have to go up to a completely different level of love, a blissful love. And that now has this injection of pleasure that it gives the animal. So, but before giving that injection of pleasure, the animal has to release its appetite for worldly pleasures. And then this new pleasure will take it up to a higher level. That's the strategy. That's the strategy to capture the entire person. The entire person. And he says the same with all the other emotions within the heart. There's all branches of awe and love. Your divine soul desires to be for God alone. So with love, he went into how this love can inundate and take over the animalistic soul. The other emotions don't seem to do that, but the divine soul wants that the heart should only have those other emotions there. But it's really love that's the conquering force. So now that was all about the inner self. But your divine soul doesn't just want the inner self, it wants the inner self to take over the outer self. And if you can even just have the outer self alone, that's something. But better to have the outer self because you got the inner self. So now we get to the part about your inner self. Your divine soul desires that all your capacity to speak with your mouth and all your capacity for conscious thought in your brain be hers exclusively. They should be infused with her persona, her clothes of thought and speech. What are her clothes of thought and speech? Her clothes of thought are thoughts of God and of his Torah. Her clothes of speech are words of Torah, which he desires to speak all day, so that your mouth never rests from speaking them. It's talking about speaking words of Torah. And she desires the capacity to take action with your hands, with all your 248 limbs, engaged solely in mitzvah activities, the third layer of your divine soul. So that's the outer persona should also be completely inundated, taken over by the divine soul. Nobody said anything. I guess it just goes on and it keeps speaking. Okay. Nice to hear. So I know there's people there. Okay, fine. Okay, let's hear and show of hands. How many of you here expect to achieve this in your lifetime? How many of you long for such a thing, that you would love to achieve this in your lifetime? Okay. That's why we're so frustrated. Because we want the impossible. But you have to want it. Because you remember your soul was given an oath before you were born. Be a tzaddik. What do they mean when they say be a tzaddik? This is what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik doesn't mean just I did the right things, I was a good boy. No, a tzaddik means love. That his entire being is nothing but love for the divine, and there isn't anything else. The complete tzaddik is nothing but love, and that's what your soul wants to be. Now we go on to the last line, which is beautiful. How do I get them? Hold on, I lost it here. Get back again. Last line. Okay. Now we had all those lines for the divine soul's agenda, and we just get two lines for the animalistic soul's agenda. What is okay, we know what the divine soul wants. What is the animal soul? The opposite. The animalistic soul of Flip on the other side wants exactly the opposite, but here it is. But she wants this for your good. She challenges you. Why she challenges you? So you're going to toughen up. That's why she's challenging you. You know, you struggle with this word. And in Hebrew, it's yitgaber. Yitgaber alah. Don't have a best word I can find. It's not in your translation, but I put it in mine now. To toughen up, prevail over her, and defeat her. As with the parable of the harlot and the holy Zohar. So let me tell you the Mashal Azayna, the parable of the harlot and the Zohar. I'll tell it to you. So there's a king. All these parables start with a king. And he has one beloved son. All these parables have like one beloved son. So the king is teaching his beloved son, and he tells him, you're going to get married, you're going to find a queen, but you should know there are a certain kind of woman that you should avoid, right? An immoral woman is not going to be good for you. And that's not right. You're a prince, you don't want somebody like that to come into the royal palace. So you've got to find a moral woman, not an immoral woman. Okay. And so son says, yeah, of course, father, yeah. Now, in the palace, the king happened to have, there was one of the women working in the palace who was a very beautiful and seductive woman. So the king calls her in and says, listen, I want to find how loyal my son really is to me. So I'm hiring you that you should go and tempt him. And we'll see, So she knows that what does the king want? The king wants that he should not give in to her. But she also knows that she really, really has to do her job best she can. But the worst thing that could happen to her is that she should be successful. So she's stuck in a bind. So the story goes that she goes to the prince and she uses every device that she can and grabs him and everything, all the tricks and so on. And in the end, of course, the son does not give in, and his father is very proud of him. And she goes, "Phew, that was close," and she's rewarded. Because she did her job. Now I heard from a boxer once. This guy was a boxer a long, long time, and he boxed. He told me of the time he boxed in Miami, and he was like I don't know, a teenager or something at the time, and in walks Lansky to the locker room. Lansky walks into his locker room. Anyways, he told me everything in detail, but he described how he had the box up there and put on a real show so the judges wouldn't realize that things had been fixed, but he knew he had to lose, but he couldn't lose until the third round. So that's that's the state that your animal and all of the Sitra Achra is in. It's trying to convince you, no, let's do this. But its nightmare is that it should win. The last thing it wants is to win. It wants you to win. So if it wants you to win, why is it putting up such a fight? Because the only way you're going to win is by bringing out your inner strengths, your inner powers. And you don't get to those inner powers unless something challenges you. Now, I'll give you an example. How you can only get higher through resistance. So at a certain for thousands of years, human beings wanted to fly, and then it got into the heat of it. After you had automobiles, bicycles, and automobiles, people trying all sorts of ways and plunging to their death, to trying to find ways to fly. So they ended up with two competing models. One that many people thought was going to win were these big helium balloons, and it had a zeppelin going across the Atlantic Ocean. In other words, it was a vehicle that was lighter than air. So it floated above, and then you had propellers, and it went, carrying people underneath. Then the other model was an airplane, which meant you had resistance of the air providing lift. Right? If you have air pushing against this wing, that will lift the plane up. In other words, instead of being lighter than the air, use the resistance of the air to lift you. And it turns out that's the way that won in the end. Resistance takes you higher and faster than lightness. So the animal, the beast inside you knows that, and knows that if you really, to become a tzaddik, I'm going to have to really challenge this guy. And as soon as you start trying to do anything good, comes up with all sorts of ways to disturb you and make it so much harder for you. Why? Because if you're just good because you're good and nothing challenges, you're not going to get anywhere in life. I'm going to make it hard for you to be good, and then you'll truly become great. That's what that beast is all about. That's its whole strategy, and how it lifts you up. So next time you see that it's getting hard, that's my wings lifting me. It's the resistance of the air. And come on, there's got to be some. There's no questions. Okay, fine. Why would a king do this to his son? It's a parable. Okay, it's a parable. That's
You have to unmute yourself.
Who's muted?
Toby wants to talk, but unmute yourself.
Somebody wants to talk?
Can you hear me now?
I hear somebody. Who is that? Oh, Toba.
Yeah.
Yes, I hear you.
Well, I'm sure you have a good answer and I want to hear it. But if you're spending all of your energy in loving God, how does that affect your loved ones? Your children, your spouse, your friends, what time do you have for them? Or how does
They're divine. They are divine beings. They have a divine soul. Everything has a divine spark in it. On the contrary, if you love them because they give you pleasure, you don't love them, you love yourself. If you love them because of the divine spark within them, you love them. So the only true love is love that's not unconditional. That's not out of what are you giving me, but because of who you are. Who are you? In essence, a divine soul. So therefore, that's what I love.
But all your energy is going into loving God.
Yeah, but there's God inside this person.
Oh, okay.
That's what you love. I'm
Okay.
saying on the contrary, if you love the person because of what this person is giving you,
No, I get that.
yeah,
But
if it's
if you love,
that's a selfish kind of love. That's not real love.
but if you love the divine spark in them, it's it's a like you're
That's
loving
true.
God.
Yeah,
You
they did.
still
It's
love
the same
God.
thing.
Okay.
They asked the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Tanya, they asked him, which is greater, a love of God or a love of your fellow man? And he said, love of your fellow man, because then you love the one that your beloved loves.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's true love. And also, I mean, we talked about pleasures of this world. Does this mean the tzaddik has no pleasure? No, in we learned in chapter 6 that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi had every sort of delicacy on his table. He was, and we learned that Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Nachman had fine wine and marbled beef, right? Because that would open up his mind. But they didn't have these pleasures for the sake of pleasure. They had these pleasures to open their minds and their hearts. Like enjoying Shabbos. You enjoy a Shabbos meal. We're enjoying the Shabbos because it's Shabbos. Not because I enjoy this food, therefore I'm going to eat it. It's meaningful, has meaning to it. So on the contrary, the tzaddik enjoys the world and loves people in a true and an authentic way, not in a selfish way. So it's much more real. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Toba. Somebody asked the question. I think it's in general a mistake to think that you have to become a hermit and abandon this world and everything. No, on the contrary. If obviously God loves this world, otherwise it wouldn't exist. So obviously He wants you to do something with this world and be here and be involved in it, not to abandon it. That's it. But it starts off with taking over your own self and then spreads to others as well. All things. So in the next chapter, we're going to get to further in this discussion of the tzaddik and the two different kinds of tzaddik, categories of tzaddik, the incomplete tzaddik and the complete tzaddik. And we have to know that about the tzaddik because, first of all, you're given an oath to be a tzaddik. But that oath means that's your goal, that's your objective. Even you can't achieve it, that's what you're always striving for. And that's the total victory when you completely win the battle. So I'll just tell you a story like that. This was probably, I think it was in 1950. So in those days, in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, there was Ebbers Field, was a baseball field. And you could be in Crown Heights near 770 and go for a stroll, and you'd be there at the baseball field. So Crown Heights was one of the largest Jewish neighborhoods, probably after Brownsville, hundreds of thousands of Jews. And even on Shabbos, people would walk to the baseball game. So there was a man, Shimshon Stark, and he recalls he was probably a teenager at the time, and he's walking with a friend and a friend's father, and they're walking down Kingston Avenue, going to the baseball game. And who do they see walking towards them? But the Rebbe. The Rebbe had just that year become Rebbe. People at least accepted him as Rebbe if he hadn't accepted it yet. They see him walking towards them. So Shimshon says was even though he was a young man, he was already knew the Rebbe from before. And so he introduced the Rebbe to his friends. And the Rebbe asked where they're going. Oh, well, we're going to the baseball game. Oh, so the Rebbe starts talking to them about baseball. And he asks them, what's better to be, to watch the baseball game or to play a baseball game? And that's what they're talking about, talking baseball, which is better, to watch the game or play the game. So the kid there is like just became bar mitzvah at that time. So the Rebbe starts saying, I'll tell you the difference. If you're just a spectator and you see your team is losing and it's obvious that they lost, what do? You get up and leave. And you're gone. But if you're really playing the game, you play to the end, no matter what. And he looks at the bar mitzvah boy and says, before bar mitzvah, you're just a spectator. Once you bar mitzvah, you're a player in the big game. And you have to know you're going to stick it out all the way to the end. So that's the idea over here, is we're told what the goal is. And you're told that, it's life. This is real. That life is not a TV show. Life is the real thing. And it's a war. And there's real casualties. And there's only one thing that you really want out of this war, and that is total victory. And you're going to play the game to the end. It's a nice story. Okay, so the main thing, the takeaways I wrote down over here, there are 3 takeaways from this chapter 9. Takeaway number 1, an impulsive beast reacts from her headquarters in the left ventricle of your heart, powering your body and hijacking your brain, while a divine being speaks to you from her headquarters in your brain and your heart's right ventricle. And number 2, these are 2 kings at war over every emotion in your heart, every word on your lips, every thought in your mind, and every flex of every muscle in your body. It's a conflict that leaves no room for negotiation or compromise. And then number 3, don't be fooled. Your animal soul's worst fear is that she might actually win. God willing, continue with chapter 10 next week. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close this. I know
Thank
how.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
I know I can close it somehow.